Welcome to Leaders and Learners. My name is Tanya McKenzie, and you can find me at the intersection of public relations and leadership. Join us as we talk to organizational leaders, elected officials, experts, authors, artists, and personalities, sharing their stories, talking about how they got to where they are and how they continue to learn and lead the way. So without further ado, let's get into it. Greetings, good people. It's your girl T here again with another edition of Leaders and Learners. Now listen, I've told you before, but I want to remind you, Wednesdays are now going to be dedicated to the South Bay. It's where I live, work, and play. And we have some amazing people here that are incredibly talented, thought leaders doing some awesome things. We have great events here that don't always get the coverage that it needs. We have breaking news that does not always get covered by our local media. And we have brave, wonderful, smart, contributing residents that also like to lean into some of the things that are going on in our great South Bay. Listen, this place is amazing. It's wonderful to live here. And I am just glad that I have the opportunity to be able to highlight some of the greatness that takes place in the South Bay. So welcome again to Leaders and Learners South Bay. Listen, I have some amazing people here today. We got some things to get into. It's been wild out here these last couple of days. We got some breaking news last night about one of our city council people in Redondo Beach. So without further ado, I'm bringing on Miss Maggie, Paul, and Miriam. Hey guys, how are you?
Tanya.
Good to be here.
Yes, it's been a minute. Happy holidays, first of all.
Happy holidays.
Tell me let's go around really quick, Maggie. How are things going with you? What's new? How you been?
I've been well. I kind of a bit of a rush with trust and estates. People are, I think, wanting to get things done before the end of the year. So I've been very busy at work.
Busy's good. Busy's good. Paul, what's going on with you?
I'm fine. I'm just doing well, and I'm looking forward to the holidays. Should be a good time.
Awesome. Miss Miriam?
Same. Looking forward to the holidays, keeping up with what's been going on recently in our schools. But luckily, it sounds like our wonderful police and great school system is taking care of what needs to be taken care of. So things are good, too.
Sounds amazing. So let's go ahead and get into one of the hot topics right now. One of our city council people, he's been under fire for a while, had to get a review by the state bar. And Miss Maggie is...
Sorry.
With Zane Obaji. So without further ado, Miss Maggie, go ahead and take it away.
Okay. You can hear me all right? I had a bit of a glitch.
No, you're good.
Okay. Well, so the state bar judge Chawla, who heard all the evidence for the last few months up until September, after a couple of months now, has issued her decision yesterday. And Councilmember Obaji, Attorney Obaji, has been found guilty of several counts of violations, the most serious of which is misappropriation of funds by gross negligence. And as the judge put it, coupled with worrying malfactions due to the serious nature of Obaji's delinquency and his failure to acknowledge the entirety of his wrongdoing, she was very concerned that he will repeat these misdeeds. And I should qualify my report here as, I'm a resident with legal knowledge. I'm not speaking as an expert attorney on state bar process. But my understanding of this decision is that the judge has made her, it's a binding decision in terms of she has found him guilty of various violations. But this whole document, she's also recommended how Obaji should be disciplined as an attorney. And that then goes to the Supreme Court for them to issue the disciplinary proceedings. She's recommending a 3-year suspension, but she's staying the suspension, meaning she's modifying it so that it actually has some terms. So what she's saying is that Obaji should be actually, or should actually be suspended until he's rehabilitated. And he should be suspended from the practice of law for a minimum of 2 years until he proves that he's fit to practice. And this is a summary. He needs to review the rules of professional conduct, complete an e-learning course, review the statutes on professional conduct. He needs to meet with a probation officer regularly, file quarterly and final reports. He needs to go to state bar ethics school. Again, probation would commence upon the effective date of the Supreme Court's order imposing the discipline. She further recommends he be ordered to take and pass the MPRE exam. Now, that's an ethics exam that all attorneys are required to take before they even pass the bar, or before they even can be licensed. Let me put it that way. So he has to take that over again because obviously he, didn't get it the first time. According to the rule of court, he needs to notify clients and opposing counsel of his suspension and refund any fees that he has not earned, because he can't go forward with that representation for a couple of years. He has to pay monetary sanctions of $2,500, and he has to pay costs to the state bar. They didn't list what those costs are. They probably have to take time to figure that out. So this was all based on 2 cases, and I can go through what the charges were if you like.
Yeah, let's do this. Who has questions right now? Like, what are, Paul as a resident, Miriam as a resident, what are some of the questions that come to mind that maybe Maggie can clear up for us? Because if you're thinking it, I'm sure there's other residents that might be thinking it also.
I have a question. Previously, when the proceedings were occurring and everything else, Mr. Obaji had gone on social media, and I believe also in his community email, and stated that that he's been absolved, that these are like fake claims. I don't know if I'm using the right words, but basically he said that he was not responsible and that not to worry about this. But now it sounds like he actually is suspended from practicing and almost was disbarred. So my question is, how can he go and tell residents one thing, and now clearly it's completely opposite? And how do we trust our council person moving forward, knowing that he was not honest?
Really good question and good point. And I'm thinking the same thing. To your point, the judge states in her decision how Obaji actually contradicted himself, the sworn testimony that he had agreed and stipulated facts. So during the trial, and she calls it undermining the trial, because what he tried to do was turn around things that they had already agreed on. So he has a habit of not telling the truth. But you're correct that he stated he was exonerated from some of these charges, particularly the misappropriation. And even more troubling to me is that the local papers claimed he was exonerated, because I guess they were taking spoon-fed information. And that's clearly not the case, because he has been found guilty of some really bad stuff. Misappropriation of funds by gross negligence is really, really serious. And you can get disbarred for that, I believe. But she gave some, they found both aggravating and mitigating circumstances that, the mitigating factors being he had no prior disciplinary actions, and he proved by bringing in witnesses such as Mayor Brand, attorneys he's worked with, friends, housekeeper, a bevy of people, he had do written statements as to his character. And so the court gave a lot of weight to his, what they called extraordinary good character.
Here's my question really quick, Maggie. And Paul, Miriam, reading what has been going on for a while, it almost seems like, and my timeline could be off, when Mayor Brand and his people brought Obagi here to run for office, these things were already going on. We
Yes.
didn't find out until after the election. So how does that, in your mind, and we're looking at the leadership of our city, how should residents feel about the fact that our mayor and his peers brought in someone that was already under this kind of investigation, did not present that information to the residents, and then helped him get elected? They literally campaigned together. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the plausible deniability is that they just said they didn't vet, Mr. Obagi very well. One point to Maggie, just to let everyone know, this is the recommended sentence, but it's not been handed down by the state Supreme Court. So it's not effective just yet, and it may change. Am I correct with saying that?
The judge states it as recommended discipline.
Okay.
I do not have enough experience to know whether the state bar tends to follow the recommendations that a judge hands down or not, but I imagine they do.
Okay, so the recommended, he's not disbarred. He's just not going to be able to practice law for a couple of years, which is going to be a significant financial hit to him and a big hit to his reputation because of the things he's been found guilty of. I don't believe it's going to affect his council seat. It'll take a majority. I don't know. It'd be a very, very interesting council meeting to watch. But
yeah, I wonder how comfortable people are with someone who's a proven
Yeah, because the city charter says that somebody has to be convicted of moral turpitude, and the seat is considered vacant. And if you read it that way, it doesn't even mean it bypasses the council and everything. The decision is instant.
Well,
once you're convicted of that, but I don't think it's ever going to come to that.
He is guilty of moral turpitude.
I'm sorry?
I didn't go through the charges. Maybe I should.
Well, is moral turpitude in there? Okay. Well,
go ahead, Maggie.
Good.
Go ahead and go through those.
That's not good for Mr. Obagi.
So there,
again, I just don't think it's going to affect his seat on city council.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, which leads to what Tanya was speaking about is they don't really care.
Yeah. So that's one thing to bring him in and act like you didn't know these charges were pending. You campaign with him, you lie to your constituents. And now that you know that what was presented.
Yeah.
Am I frozen?
Out
No.
Our leadership, like in all transparency as a resident, what does that say to you when leadership is presenting you something that is false? They are lying to you to your face. How do you feel about that?
I don't know if it changes any of our positions because we don't like them anyway. I mean, I haven't supported them. And I find a lot of the things they've already said disingenuous beyond Mr. Obagi. So the thing is, I'm not surprised. I think a lot of people are starting to lend an ear to this conversation and to know that these people aren't really on your side. They're on their own side. They're in government for their own betterment and their own little agenda. But they're really not on the side of many of all of Redondo. Definitely all of Redondo.
I have a comment from Peter Aziz. How does this not violate the charter for our city then?
It does violate the charter. But I said it's just not going to come up.
Right. Doesn't the charter state issue with moral turpitude? Yeah, you did ask that question. Yeah, and
it was a big issue of about 20 years ago with another person in the city government. So it's the one thing that's in the charter that it's actually used the words moral turpitude. It's one of the two things that actually can get you ousted from the council. But again, it's open to interpretation and it has to come up. So I don't know if the mayor will put it on the agenda. I mean, if these things, nothing has happened until actually happens. So they may delay this until it's election time, with the state's decision making, if the state Supreme Court's going to make a decision. I don't know what the schedule, if it actually is going to happen, but regardless of all this, I could see it being delayed and delayed and delayed.
Well, I'll say this. It's interesting how quickly they put up Christian Harvath's house that he bought in another city, even though he was still living in Redondo Beach. It's so funny how quickly they put that up and tried to rally support to oust him. But this has not and possibly will not come up.
Well, okay, just to correct Paul, I mean, the court, state bar has found him guilty, and that's a done deal of several items. And I would like to read them because the judge emphasizes some very important things that I think we as a community need to know about Abaji. But what hasn't been solidified is that the recommended discipline, that has to go to the Supreme Court. I don't think they're in the business of changing a judge's decisions. I believe that that's hard and fast. Now, I do believe, based on what past research, my husband, that Abaji could appeal to the Supreme Court of California. So we'll see.
All right, go ahead and read those.
All right. There were 2 cases that were brought, you might remember, a total of 12 charges. He was charged with and found guilty by Judge Chawla, of representing 2 clients with potential conflicts of interest without discussing the potential conflicts with them, and getting their written authorization, which is required by law. Representing 1 client in a suit against a former client. That's a big no-no. Failure to notify and account for settlement funds belonging to a former client. Misappropriation of settlement funds belonging to the former client through gross negligence, placing his own interest above the former client. And the decision reads, Abaji is culpable of moral turpitude by his grossly negligent misappropriation of funds belonging to Dominguez, the former client. Finally, gross negligence regarding statements he made to the court in his lawsuit against his own malpractice attorney. Now, I just want to briefly mention the court found aggravating circumstances, which are very interesting. Multiple acts of wrongdoing and misconduct, and they gave that significant weight in determining the appropriate discipline. Significant harm to a client over a prolonged period. I believe it was 2 years that it took for Dominguez to get the funds that were due to him from Abaji. And this is interesting. Indifference toward rectification or atonement of the consequences of misconduct. Multiple times during the trial, he tried to undermine and contradict binding statements he had previously stipulated to. And I think that's what we've seen of Abaji as citizens, is that he spins or doesn't take any responsibility for his own misconduct at all. And then again, the mitigating circumstances were no prior discipline and extraordinary good character. But the court noted they looked at remorse. They didn't find remorse in Abaji's case. They looked at good faith. They did not find good faith. Abaji's conduct was not supported by a good faith belief that he was authorized to withhold Dominguez's money. So I think those are significant.
Thoughts, questions, comments, concerns?
Unfortunately.
Pat Healy said, do not forget that there was a whistleblower that warned our city council about Zane Abaji Jr., and the city council covered it up. He also says Abaji has become the poster child of the Brand administration's legacy of corruption and cronyism.
Well, we'll see if they do anything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think they're going to do anything.
Paul, how long have you been here in Redondo Beach? I know there's a lot of transplants and there are people that are just new to this, but how long have you been here and what has been your experience?
Well, I was born in a little company in Mary in 1965, and I grew up in the Hollywood Riviera. I moved to Redondo in the 90s, but I lived on the border of Redondo, up until then. And most of my friends were from here. And I went to St. Lawrence, which was in Redondo Beach, which is a parochial school, but I went to South High in Torrance. So I've lived here forever and followed going back to Brad Parton, going back to Greg Hill, I followed Redondo politics since then. It was actually really fun sport to watch back then, because there were people that checked the city councils back then. So it's always been interesting. And the one thing I can tell you is that my mother was a poll worker, and I've always voted because she was a poll worker, and she just said, "You got to go vote." And so it just became very evident that you need to vote in every election, and you need to vote in the local elections, because those are the ones that affect your life the most. So that's why I've been monitoring this stuff forever. And it's just my civic duty, I believe. We all should, because even with the most mundane things that city councils do, and we'll talk about that soon, it affects your life directly. And these are the elections that really matter.
Yeah, it does. All right. Any final thoughts about Mr. Obagi and the Redondo Beach City Council? Ms. Maggie?
Well, I don't think he's going to run for city attorney anymore, because I don't think he'll be able to practice law at the time when that office comes available. But
I'm interested, to see how this.
I really wonder if he's going to run again, because this is a cudgel that can be used over him, and it's not good. So, that District 4 seat might come available. You never know. I don't think he'll step down. I don't think he'll resign in any respect. And I don't think they'll even ask him to resign. But when it comes election time, he's going to have to plan things out pretty damn well.
Well, he has enough money to buy an election, so then there's that.
Well,
I don't know how you can trust somebody, and even how can we trust that his prior decisions are above board? I mean, he's just not, he's someone that is not ethical. So it's very scary to me.
It is. Any final thoughts on that? Miriam? Is she still here?
Miriam needs a better connection.
Yeah, she does. I do see that many of us have kind of chimed in, or at least been paying attention to what has happened at the school district yesterday. Any thoughts on that?
Just quickly, just so people out there know, that the last 2 days that Redondo Union High has been shut down for 2 different incidents of students bringing loaded automatic weapons onto the campus. It sounds like that the incidents were related, and it just happened, and they happened one day after the other. For the first day caused the second day. It's horrific and it's terrible. But there's obviously going to be some fallout from that, because they're going to increase security. Also, just there's been this situation at Borough Heights with an unruly student disrupting everybody and everyone and hurting other children. I've heard that the principal is leaving that school. Maybe he was ineffective, but that's just what I've heard.
I just talked to him. Oh, God. I'd love to check in with him, but I do want to say that I watched the conference, the meeting that they had this morning at 8 a.m. I love our superintendent. I think Dr. Keller left us in good hands. Some of the comments that she made today really need amplification, understanding that they're not handing out guns or weapons or drugs at the school, and parents and those around young people need to play an active role in what goes on with them. And I don't think we emphasize that enough. I don't think we absolutely have an understanding of how integral parents are, even in high school. I think, they start kind of backing off a little bit after junior high school. They start kind of letting them find their way. They're not smart enough yet to find their own way. We have to be an active participant. And no, there is no privacy, like not in my house. I don't know if you guys feel a little differently, but as long as I can be held accountable for you not going to school, I'm also accountable for what's in your room or what's in your backpack, right? I just don't understand where the separation comes from and how we continue to just allow for them to just flourish and live without the guidance that is required of your guardian. And I know all the parents aren't always around. Everybody's household is not built the same, but there is a level of responsibility and accountability that comes with grooming and growing young people. So I don't know. I just wanted to I saw Nicole this morning. Our superintendent, I think she's doing a great job. And I just hope that, our police department and our school district continue to work well together.
Tanya, it brings to mind for me mental health issues and how, the school could play more of an integral part in helping students that are troubled or have, issues. Did they go into any of that? I don't know the circumstances of these two students and why they would go about bringing a weapon to school, but it seems like there are issues there that could somehow, maybe the school could help identify. I think we need to do more in that area.
Well, Tom Backley was there, and Beach City's Health District was definitely a part of the conversation.
That's good.
The youth center that they have opened is and when they are available for students to drop in and come hang out and speak with someone. My concern with even health departments is, do you have counselors that have actual experience? I know we have a lot of educated people on staff, but sometimes there needs to be people that have lived the life that some of these kids are living to be able to have practical conversations with them. You see what I'm saying? That's just, for me, that's always been the disconnect. Even after my mom passed, my younger sister, who we raised, she had a hard time going to a counselor because she was just like, I don't think they can understand what I'm saying, what I've lived through. They don't understand my life, so I don't want to talk to them.
Totally agree.
And I do believe that there are times when kids feel a little reluctant to open up when they feel like there's nobody that has lived experience similar to theirs.
Maybe some kind of peer program would be more helpful. Kids that have been through more going out and I don't know.
There needs to be a variety, and parent accountability. Again, how much are we holding parents accountable? Paul?
My understanding, and I don't have children, and I don't know if this is exactly true, but one of the students that was brought a gun on the campus is being raised by older siblings. So there is no parenting there. I don't know if parenting can prevent things like this, but they would definitely, maybe it'll influence the vast amount of children. The accountability, as you said, if something really, these kids' lives may have changed forever from this point on because they could get removed from the school. And that is a big change. Where are they going to go? There's going to be, their options are really limited and they set themselves on a path that's really bad. So I don't know if, and then the other students at Redondo will see that. You do something like this, there is big consequences. And I don't know if a teenager's mind really can wrap around the idea of like, wow, I made this one mistake and it completely changed the course of my life. So hopefully the other ones will learn, and I'm sure they will. I know there's a lot of parents out there that are incredibly concerned about what's going on. This is not something that happens in Redondo at all.
We had a conference, not a conference. It was like a panel when Chief Kaufman was still running the Redondo Beach Police Department. And it was me and Dr. Goody Goodlow and a few other people. And there was a lady on the panel. I don't want to call her out, but she was very upset about police being on campus. Like, she didn't want that. She just felt like police being on campus is intimidating and it's a problem. And she didn't want her child, because her child was Black, and didn't want her child being mistreated. Though I understand that, you got to also look at situations like this when you're thankful and you're grateful that police officers are on the campus. And no one's perfect. I don't think any department is perfect, but I do have to say Redondo Beach PD is pretty good when it comes to this kind of stuff. And we have excellent school, our school officers. And I think it's a blessing that we have that. Because
and the police department is right next to the school, which is very helpful. But you take a step back and look at that. This is 2 days out of decades of just normal operations of our school. So it's an unfortunate incident, but to me, it's not this ongoing problem that we've seen. And a police presence, I don't know if people really should worry. Like I said, the police are right next to the school. They're there all the time anyway, just out of geography.
All the time.
So yeah, so it's just I don't know if they're there, and most people like it. Most people have no problem with it because you never know what could happen. I think this is going to pass, and I think that if those children are, what's the word I'm looking for when they're expelled from school, that's going to really probably set a really good precedent for the other kids to learn from.
Yeah. Yep. So again, really happy that we do have Dr. Wesley. I think she's great. Our police department, I think they're amazing. And the students, kudos to the students that actually told, right?
Sure.
Like that's brave.
Yeah.
That's
It is
incredibly brave.
for someone in that age group to do something like that, to worry like, hey, that other student has a gun. I don't know why they brought those guns, and they may not have been directed at any particular student. I don't know. But yeah, standing up like that is, again, a once in a lifetime decision that can change your life and set you on a good path, or a path of like, I did the right thing at that time, and it was probably did a lot of good.
Could have prevented some damage, a lot of damage. Before we get out of here, I do want to ask you, because I know this is coming up, the annual holiday stroll in Riviera Village. Have either one of you been? Do either one of you plan on going? Let me know your thoughts on that.
It's wonderful. I have been in the past.
Yeah, I've been in the distant past. It's usually a very, very big event, and it's very busy. Unfortunately, I can't make it this year. It's fun because you will see a lot of people that maybe you haven't seen in a while, and it's the holidays, so it's a good time for most people. We
need some joy and fun, sure. Right?
It's very cheerful. It puts you in the spirit. You know?
I love that. What else is going on with you two before we get out of here? Is there anything else that's happened at City Council that maybe we've missed out on? Any updates, Paul? What have you been paying attention?
There's a lot of things that a while ago, a couple of weeks ago at the City Council meeting, they discussed the ballot initiative to change the status, basically eliminating our elected city attorney. It was only because of resident action, and that they kind of punted on this and said they were going to decide for the 2025 election if this is going to go on the ballot at all. This is a really bad thing that was brought to the council by this sham of the Charter Review Advisory Committee. That is probably the most destructive committee we have in the city, that was organized by Brand. It was designed to screw with our city charter, and it's terrible. I mean, it's just terrible. The only good thing is the recent appointments of Matt Kilroy has brought some balance to this, because they were out of control. They're basically unrestricted. And while Nils Derenheim was mayor pro tem, he just gave him free reign. They really didn't have it. They had a really loose agenda, a really kind of dodgy, schedule of meeting. And it was just, it's horrendous, the stuff that's coming out of them. Fortunately, they're running out of money and their time's running out. So they also babble a lot about nothing, so they don't get a ton of stuff done. Anyway, that was up. The city council has decided not to really decide on this because they know it's tenuous for them, especially with the election coming up. If they choose, by the way, the city of Redondo Beach has voted 5 times to keep our city attorney elected. We don't want any changes to the charter in that respect. They should listen to the constituency and just not even bother with it. Skipping, they had a week off, and then last night it was a real relief to see the city council get back to just absolutely boring, dull city business. That's what I think government should be. I want government to be dull. So they talked about the break wall. The break wall needs some maintenance. The Army Corps of Engineers is going to come. They're going to spend $10 million to fix our break wall, which is fantastic. We've got some work on it that we have to do, that we're responsible for. Then they talked about 4-way stop signs in certain intersections in North Redondo. The interesting thing about that is that those stop signs didn't go through the normal process of, yes, there's a problem with this intersection. There's auto accidents and things like that. It was people in that district had gone directly to Mr. Obagi, and Obagi took it right to council. So some of it was a little half-baked. Maybe he just wants to show that he's taking action, but there wasn't a big push one way or another for stop signs. I mean, stop signs aren't a bad thing in and of themselves, but you can get a little carried away. I'm sure that people that live in North Redondo think they have plenty of stop signs in certain intersections, need them, others don't. So they talked about that, which it was super dull. Then they came up with, they had a discussion about e-bikes and enforcement of e-bikes and, you know, the proliferation of them and people breaking laws, riding them. They were kind of at a loss. And so is the police force. And so is basically the state. We're at a loss of how to regulate e-bikes. They're just everywhere and people ride them very irresponsibly. They're just accidents waiting to happen because they're motorized vehicles that are allowed on bike paths, which right in and of themselves, they should not be on the bike path, but that they are, and there's no real enforcement against that. So they talked about that. They wanted to start a task force, and the city manager asked that the council not make it a Brown acted, you know, task force that needs to be run by the city staff. He said, we don't have the bandwidth to do that right now, which leads me to another thing that's going on in our city. If you haven't heard, most of our city staff has not gotten a raise in years, and they're very, very pissed off about it. And most of the rank and file are ready to walk out. Above them, a lot of the department heads have walked out. They're making more money in other positions in other cities and not having to deal with Redondo, which can be just probably a pretty crummy city to work for because of all the nuts that show up at city council meetings screaming about one made up fact after another. So they leave, and we just lost our planning director. We've had huge turnover in community services. It all points to the fact that the city's revenues, they may say, yeah, our city revenues are increasing, but yeah, they've gone for our city budget hovers around $100 million. It's gone up to $100 or $105 million, but our costs have completely outpaced that, and they haven't given any raises out. So people are getting bent out of shape. You know, cost of living keeps going up, but the wages have been stagnant. So we're seeing this incredible attrition in city staff in Redondo Beach, and it's bad. This is not good. You know, when the sewers stop, then you really get upset. That's what affects your life. Most people don't care about a Las Vegas style, you know, swimming pool next to the sea in the harbor. They want to make sure their toilets flush. They want to make sure the police are happy and the fire department's going to show up to put out the fires. So these are the things that, you know, if you monitor this stuff enough, you start seeing, and it's a real problem because under Mayor Brand, he is basically NIMBY'd every kind of development project he can, and it's starting to kill revenues, and revenues are not keeping pace with costs. So we've got a lot of work to do, and hopefully in the next, I mean, this is going to be a 10-year problem to fix. So until we start seeing real change, maybe at the Galleria and along the PCH corridor, we're going to have some pretty serious problems when it comes to the city just trying to function.
I totally agree with Paul that that's a serious problem when you're not valuing your most precious resource as a city, which is your employees as an institution. It's what we spend the most on, and it's what we deserve to spend the most on because that's where the work gets done is staff. So it's sad, but it's part of Brand's legacy where they just do not value staff. They do not value people who know a lot more than them. They in fact fight them. They don't like expertise that goes beyond their knowledge. It's just sad. But one other thing, Brand said in the meeting last night that they're going to flip the switch and AES plant's going to go dark. Is that correct? Or they're not going to be any?
Well, they don't flip the switch. They had nothing to do with that decision.
No, he's doing it on January 1st. He said he's doing it on January 1st. There's going to be a big ceremony. It's a big deal. And we're going to have a park. I think he's, finally gone delusional, full board delusional. How do
we have a comment from a viewer. He says, I'm in Hawthorne and very interested in our local issues and possibly running in my city. This is great hearing real insight from y'all. Thank you for hosting this call, Tanya. I'm happy to do it. I really don't think that people understand completely how a city operates. When problems come up, who's the root of that or what is the root of that? definitely what Maggie just said, which is not having enough diversity in thought and opinion in a room, it can be vital to the operations of your city. And having people that have difference of opinion and brings a different angle to the problems you're trying to solve, if you're actually trying to solve them, definitely matters. So we'll continue to host these conversations. We're surrounded by a bunch of delusional people, so it makes sense to bring it to the forefront so that others can start to understand when there is a problem, there is a solution. You probably have to find the root of the problem to make things better. And we're definitely dealing with a little bit of dishonesty, non-transparency, and delusionalness going on in our city. But this is definitely for the South Bay. You know, the stroll is for the South Bay. We'll be bringing in others. But I want to thank you guys for being here. I know I said I wouldn't keep you too long. There's so much to talk about. Hopefully you guys will come back next week and we can continue this conversation. Maggie, I think I want to hear, go ahead.
Shout out to the police and the domestic violence, I think, task force. Anyway, those people for doing the snow day. It was fabulous. Seaside Lagoon. My grandson loved it.
I saw video. I thought it was great. I was like, I could be a kid again if I could be a kid again.
I gotta tell everybody this, and I'm going to tell everybody every time I see them. In a little over a year, we have an election coming up in the city. Districts 1, 2, and 4, and the mayor's office are going to be up for election. This is such a huge opportunity to throw the bums out and change the direction that we're headed. We're headed toward insolvency. We have financial problems and mismanagement and dissatisfaction. Mr. Brown has been in office over a decade or 2 decades in government, and he's got nothing to show for it. And so all these promises have been empty. So it's laughable to say he's going to flip the switch on a power plant that's already scheduled to shut down on January 1st, which, by the way, it was supposed to shut down January 1st 2 years ago, but it didn't. And the city had absolutely no influence on that decision whatsoever. It's made at the state level. So that's just kabuki theater. I mean, for him to go say he's going to go flip the switch and it's going to be a park, it's just, oh my God, I can't believe this. He's going to be out of office. We probably would be better off if we kept all existing, anyone that is in government now that decides to run again out of office and get some fresh faces in there, because it's just time for change. If the city now is only relying on property taxes for its number one revenue source, which was not the case before Brand. We used to make money. The city used to make money. But if you want your property taxes to keep going up so we can pay for Las Vegas style pools down in the harbor, then that's the legacy that we're getting. So we need to change that. We need to change the course of it. And we have a huge opportunity coming up in about a year to do that. And it would be very refreshing to say.
I appreciate you sharing that. I think voter apathy is something that they've worked really hard for. Our voter numbers are down, guys. Like, no one votes because they get so confused with this convoluted process. But it's important to recognize these issues matter and they do show up in your day-to-day life. So again, I want to thank you guys for being here. I hope you'll come back next week. Maggie, if you would do me a solid and go through that judgment a little more. I'm sure there's more gems in there. We just got this, last night or less than 24 hours ago. So I appreciate you doing that and sharing with us because you're smarter than me. And I love having people that are smarter than me in the room. So please, promise you'll come back. I will also say this because I talked to a couple of our other city council people that will come and share some updates. They're all welcome here. I'm happy to have any of them here. I do not have a problem with anyone coming to share their information, but we don't muzzle our viewers. If they have questions, we don't muzzle our residents. If they want to show up and have this conversation, this is what we are here for. So hopefully I will see you guys all again next week. Paul and Maggie, thank you for being here.
Thank you for providing this service, Tanya.
Absolutely.
It's wonderful for the community.
We will share and share again. All right, guys. See you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for showing up to the podcast where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. When you get a sec, take a moment, leave a comment. What do you think about today's episode? And share it with someone that you know could use the gems that were dropped today. Follow and subscribe. You don't want to miss who's coming up next. You never know who could show up here and what they could say. For your professional needs, marketing, PR, communications, or leadership, make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at Sand and Shores, or hit us up at sandandshores.com. Again, thanks so much for showing up. We appreciate you, and we'll see you soon.